Hello, Gamesline! I'm here on the show floor talking to Devolver Digital's developers of Pepper Grinder. Hi, Riv. Hello, Xeecee, the composer and developer of the game. Welcome to PAX. How's it been so far?
It's been great.
Obviously had a really good showcase because this booth is just full all the time. Is this y'all's first time showing?
Yeah, this is our first commercial game.
Wow, congrats.
First time showing it at a show.
So Pepper Grinder, just give me a quick overview from your perspective, Pepper Grinder.
Well, it's a 2D platformer about treasure hunting where you use a drill to dig up your treasure. It's kind of just all about game flow.
There's so much about game flow in it. Everything that I've seen, because anytime I see a tweet about it, I just see it in motion, and I'm just like, yeah, oh, I want to put my hands on that, easy. You've got this side-scrolling 2D platformer, but it's like a little denser than that, just because you're trying to be in constant motion.
Yeah.
So unlike many of the platformers where you have to start and stop, this is all about having the momentum. So were there any like design challenges in working around a game that's supposed to be like in motion all the time?
Well, any platformer is like deceptively hard to design.
I would say so, yeah.
And just keeping things fresh and interesting the entire time. It's kind of tricky to nail that initial feeling right away, but it's more or less unchanged since the prototype. And since then, it's just been like tuning difficulty.
Yeah.
When you're making something like this by yourself for years, you just lose all perspective for how hard something is.
And when did you hit that prototype phase? So that was a year or two ago?
That was like 6 years ago.
That was 6 years ago. I was kind of lowballing it on purpose. I thought so.
But yeah, it hasn't been full time until about 4 years ago.
That makes sense. You know, 6 years ago, you're in this prototype phase, and you've got this motion that you really like.
Yeah.
But then you have to translate that to a wide array of players now.
Yeah.
And so everyone's coming at this at a different level of expertise.
Yeah.
How does building for that, like, because Pepper Grinder is a game about the tools that you have.
Yeah.
How do you develop tools around this wide base of players?
I've definitely had it in mind all along to make it accessible and intuitive, but have a high skill ceiling.
Yep.
So I'm hoping there's a lot of room for just finding the cleanest lines possible and getting through with good times.
That cleanest line being these like really nice arcs that you're kind of going on.
Yeah. And there's also there's a couple spots where you can find skips that are risky, but like if you're speedrunning inclined or anything, that's definitely going to have to be worked into your route for the best times.
And in that vein, since you worked on the music, Xeecee, I'd love to ask about making music for a very fast-paced, arcadey kind of game.
Yeah, so since you can't assume that everyone is going to be keeping up the pace right away,
right.
I didn't want to make it feel too like anxiety-inducing, so there's a lot of more laid-back beats at first that have like very fun, simple melodies kind of on top that are loopable and aren't going to be like really grating if someone's stuck somewhere or trying something over and over again. But once you're in that flow, because it's a fast-paced game, but you're moving, like you said, in kind of these big arcs.
You made the music into these like arcs.
Yeah, there's kind of an ebb and a flow.
I love that.
So I think it fits pretty well with the motion of the game.
it comes to developing this is coming out in like level chunks, right? And how big is the scope of the game? Kind of its totality, like how many levels or worlds are we at?
It's not too big. There's 4 worlds. Each world has 4 stages and a boss.
Classy, yeah.
So yeah, it's about the length of an average 2D Sonic game. You can get through it if you know what you're doing in a couple hours.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of people's first playthroughs will probably be between like 6 and 15 hours.
I would say, yeah, that there's this sweet spot where like a 6-hour game is so ideal.
Yeah.
Where I can sit down for an evening and just sink into something.
Yeah.
I love that.
Small, tight, respects your time.
Yes.
I'm all about that.
I just remember my time playing like, Sonic Adventure on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, oh, that was so nice and it's over. And then I would like a week later be like, did I play that game? And then I'd play it again. And I'd just be like, oh yeah, I played this game. And it just becomes like comfortable.
Yeah, that's kind of where I want to be with Pepper Grinder.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit, both of y'all can talk about kind of developing the aesthetic of Pepper Grinder. Because it's got this really cool name, and because it's built on this large pepper grindy kind of device.
Yeah.
But how did that all come about? Because there's like an abstraction to it that I think is really neat.
The protagonist's name is Pepper, the drill is Grinder, and yeah, the aesthetic is mostly my sort of illustrative style because I have an art background translated to pixel art, so it's more like just blobs of color and not heavy outlines or anything, and just kind of that applied to like a turn of the century diesel punk fantasy kind of thing. Yeah, and then the music kind of leans into that, but does its own thing a lot too.
Yeah, the music, I'm working a lot in MIDI and also chopping up a bunch of samples, and I'm making stuff sound like not worse but older and dustier, so there's sort of a like cobbled together vibe. A lot of different genres. I had a lot of freedom to kind of do basically whatever. There were a lot of times where I just like, hey, I was trying out this genre, please this could fit anywhere, and you're like, yeah, actually, so
oh, that's cool. So you've got that kind of like back and forth collaboration where you're making something and you're like, oh, I've got a world for this, I got a level that
exactly
we can make this work. That's kind of cool. That makes for a nice, like, way to continue building out your game and stuff. Talking about the art, how has it been working within the structure of a game, trying to translate your art as best as possible? Because you said you were changing your style into a pixel style for the game, but that's not necessarily your background.
Yeah, not really.
I would love to hear more about that.
I've always been into games, and I've always liked pixel art, but I was mostly just a digital painter.
Because I think a lot of that comes through with Pepper Grinder.
I hope so. I like the way it translates to pixel art because it becomes a more specific language of just how the pixels fit together.
Right. Especially when you're building a language of motion.
Yeah, for sure. It's what I always do, but there's like a logic to it too.
Yeah.
So if I have like a big workload, I can still just kind of turn my brain off and just jam it all out.
So translating that to a very strict pixel art kind of style hasn't been challenging. You just turn your brain off and just go for it.
Exactly.
Because you have an idea in mind, and you're like, all right, now it's time to just put in the work. And I like that approach. That makes sense.
Yeah, it works out.
Yep. Business stuff. When is the game coming out?
First quarter next year.
That's beautiful.
That's as tight as we got it right now, but we'll let y'all know.
Awesome. And what platforms is it going to be on?
Launching on Steam and Switch.
Steam and Switch.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your time. This was awesome to be able to talk to you all about Pepper Grinder.
Absolutely.
And thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for dropping by.